Namaskar, friends, and welcome all to episode number 7 of Kabiriyat with our friend Ashwini. Ashwini, namaskar to you.
Namaskar,
And
Manoj.
yes, and by the way, of course, I think just for the fun part of it, it's probably not a bad idea to mention that Ashwini, who was in the US, has moved to UK now, Europe. So
That's right.
her horizons are widening. Basically, that's what it means.
Yeah,
So now she is going to be spreading this in Europe. That's so
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Let's hope so.
Yeah. And I'm sure more and more people are going to be listening to you. And
Yeah, to us.
and so it's over to Ashwini for episode number 7, and let's see what she has in store for us today. Over to you, Ashwini.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Manoj. And we have a new poem today. And as we mentioned in our first episode, the idea here is to take some poems of Saint Kabir and to talk about their relevance in the modern world.
Right.
So obviously, the poetry and the writing of Saint Kabir is known for its spiritual significance, and it has a tremendous spiritual value,
Right.
and it's recognized over the centuries,
Right.
all over the world by
Right.
all the sort of Kabir premies, as they are
Right.
called,
Right.
like people who love Saint Kabir's writing.
Right.
So what we are trying to do is, talk a little bit about the spiritual interpretation of the poem, but also talk about how it's currently relevant and how it can actually address a lot of the modern concerns. And when I was doing philosophical counseling, and I would use the philosophies of the East and the West, mostly ancient philosophies, I realized that some of the modern challenges are actually better addressed through Saint Kabir. So he's kind of the kind of scholar or writer or the seer or Gyani sage,
Wow.
however we describe him, for the whole world, and he's addressing how to address the frictions and how to unite the fractions and all kinds of problems in the society. So today we have a beautiful poem in front of us, and it talks about how to realize our spiritual potential through meditation. So we have seen this topic once before also, and we talked about shwasa and breathing and the importance of breathing.
Right.
And Saint Kabir discusses this topic from multiple angles in a number of poems. So here he's talking about how powerful the spiritual spark is within us and how it helps us in all walks of life. And this poem is taken from the book Paramartha Sopan, which is a compilation of Hindi saints' poem, which is edited by Gurudev Professor R.D. Ranade. And as we discussed in one of our last sessions, is that Gurudev Ranade also has thousands of followers all over the world. And he himself was both a philosopher, he wrote numerous books on philosophy, and he was also a spiritual leader. So he has chosen this poem in the book Paramartha Sopan, and the poem is like this: Apne khat diyana baru re, नाम के तेल सुरत के बाती, ब्रह्म अगिन उदगारू रे, जगमग ज्योत निहार मंदिर में, तन मन धन सब वारू रे, झूठी जान जगत की आशा, बारंबार बिसारू रे, कहे कबीर सुनो भई साधो, आपन काज सवारू रे. And the translation by Gurudev Ranade in Hindi is as follows: अपने घट में दीपक जलाओ, नाम का तेल डालकर सूरत की बत्ती को ब्रह्मरूप अग्नि से उद्दीपित करो, मंदिर में जगमग ज्योति देखकर उस पर अपना तन मन धन सब निछावर कर दो, जगत की आशा को झूठी जानकर बार बार उसका विस्मरण करो। कबीर कहते हैं कि हे साधु, अपना काम अच्छी तरह से संपूर्ण करो. Yeah, so
Nice. Yeah.
then we'll go to, yeah, so we'll go to the English translation of this poem and sort of, talk about some of the metaphors that they have used in this poem.
Right.
So the first line says, like, light a lamp in your pot. So here is some metaphor for the human body. So
Correct.
light a lamp, meaning like, we have a spiritual spark within us. So light that up, and make it into a lamp, like even if it's a small lamp. So how do you do that? So with the oil of God's name, which is also known as mantra, ignite the light of the wick of mind. So, you can sort of transform your mind with this constant meditation on the mantra, which is the name of God. And the wick will be inflamed with fire in the form of Brahma. So Saint Kabir says, watch that spark turn into fire in the form of Brahma. So when it reaches that stage, it's like sort of, being one with the Brahman. And seeing the light shining in the temple, offer up all your possessions, body, mind, and wealth. So when you see that fire within the temple, now temple again refers to our body.
Right.
So like, the spark has become a fire, and so our body has transformed itself from being a pot to being a temple. And in that, when that happens, like, you want to sort of like, give all your possessions, material possessions, or whatever else you have for this cause, so to say. And then it says, like, think of the material world as false and just focus on the name of the Lord. And Kabir says, oh good man, accomplish your duties to the best way possible.
Wow.
अपना काज सवारो, मतलब अपना काम करते रहो.
Right. Right. Yes.
Right. Or, it's the same message from the Bhagavad Gita, which says, Karmanye Vadhikarasya.
Right.
And then also it has Mafaleshu Kadachna. But
Right.
basically what that means is that, like, you have your duties and they're very important and you have to keep doing them. In fact, this theme occurs to some extent in the Stoicism as well. And they say that you have to understand that your duties are the most important actions for you. Like, don't look at somebody else. Like, don't look at a senator or a king and say, oh, I envy them because they have a different kind of, different set of duties. So don't do that, because, you're given your own duties, and your ultimate goal is going to be achieved through those duties. So whatever task is given to you in your life, whether it's, working at a certain place, looking after your family, looking after yourself, do those faithfully and as well as possible. So now we'll look a little bit at the spiritual interpretation before we go to the modern relevance.
Right.
And here Saint Kabir says that, we all have potential to be one with the Brahman, and that is the ultimate reality. And we can enjoy that oneness and imagine that spiritual experience which takes us in a different realm. So Saint Kabir calls it inflaming the mind with the fire of God. And how does one accomplish that? So as we said, like, using the oil of God's name to understand and engage that spirit in us. So the more we sort of, nurture it, the bigger and bigger that experience becomes. And it takes a lot of patience. It takes time. It takes effort. And initially, it's a lot of effort. But then it becomes, easier as the time goes on, because then it sort of like, becomes a habit. And then we sort of, start focusing on it more and more often, because we start noticing and experiencing the benefits of doing that. So what Saint Kabir is saying is that meditation awakens the spiritual realm within us. And meditation, again, is like, focusing on your breathing. And it creates more focus in you. And that focus helps helps your brain. It gives more oxygen to the brain. It helps with your work. It helps with your health. And overall, the meditation proves to be very helpful, both for the spiritual purposes and also for, our other goals in life. So when that little lamp begins to shine brightly like a fire, then the body and mind are transformed into a temple. And now we are compelled to focus on it with all our energy and power at our command, whether it's physical or mental powers or material wealth of all kinds. So simultaneously, we also start realizing that the worldly desires can only lead us so far. As they say that everything is Maya, it's all delusion, it's all temporary. And when they talk like that, what they are saying is that this life is not the end goal. The end goal is really our journey from being a soul from being an individual soul to being a universal soul. And when you look at the journey, then you see, this life is only one of the lives or one of the stops in the journey. So the moment we stop thinking about that and start focusing on what's around us,
Right.
then we get caught, into these worldly desires or material desires, as Saint Kabir calls them. So he calls his desires as false. That doesn't mean that they don't exist, but they are sort of only connected with things that are temporary in nature and they're going to go away. So therefore, stick to what is real, what is true, and what's sort of more permanent. So he says that all these false desires are better forgotten. There's no point in pursuing them. So Saint Kabir requests a good man. He says, "O sadhu," meaning, "O good man,
Right.
accomplish your duties and your promises to yourself." And what are those promises? Is to realize the Brahman through meditation.
Right.
So this is sort of the spiritual interpretation or the significance of the poem. And I feel when we look at this poem sort of from modern perspective, what does it teach us? Does it have any modern relevance? And if so, what are the things that Saint Kabir could, let's say, if he was around here today, what is it that he would like to, tell us about how we could change our lives through this thought? So I think there are three significant points that we learn from this poem. And the first point is that we need to look after ourselves. We need to understand our true nature, which is sort of, the spiritual spark within us, or to understand that we are a spiritual being, whether we are aware of it or not. And we need to nurture that spirit daily. If we nurture the spark within us on a daily basis through meditation, then it has the scope of becoming larger later. And he suggests that this can be done by meditation, and the daily practice is going to help us grow further.
Right.
And then this will, expand one day into a significant and powerful aspect of our personality. And this is something that, Gurudev Ranade talked a lot as well. He talked about, how meditation is the most important thing. And he liked, to talk about his message through various saints. So he thought that, Saint Kabir's message was very universal and, very applicable. Then Saint Kabir says that the second point, so the first point was meditation as a daily practice and nurturing that spirit within us. The second point is that the material desires are false. And what that means is that, they do exist and sometimes they need to be fulfilled, but they are immaterial. For example, eating your meals is important, but eating a particular meal is not that important. So if we get up in the morning and say we have to have this particular dish, and we spend all our day either creating that dish or going to the shops to find that dish, that's not very important. That's immaterial as long as you get your meal to survive for the day, and you focus on what's important, which is uh, you know, meditation, focusing on your breathing. Um, so he draws your attention to the fact that there are, least these desires are least significant in human life, and we're all always pining for something or the other. Sometimes our focus is money, sometimes it's more prestige, more respect, sometimes it's romantic love, sometimes it's increasing our balance, or whatever it is that we feel the lack of, and then we focus on that, and we spend our days and nights thinking and worrying about it. But all those things, sort of, they only go so far. Like, they give you pleasure only to a certain extent, and again, when you move on to the next life, you sort of leave all those things behind. So what you take with you is, like, the contentment, the meditation, and this sort of spark, uh, expanding into greater, something greater. So one can find meaningfulness in human life only when one recognizes one's spiritual potential. So basically, what he's trying to say is that, like, give weightage of meaning where it's really required. There are a lot of things in life which can technically be important, but recognize what's the most important thing and prioritize that accordingly. And then
Right.
the third point is, what he says is that, like, recognize that spiritual uh, being, or our spiritual identity, is very important, and nurture it daily through meditation. So, what I felt while reading this poem or thinking about it is that Saint Kabir is trying to address a lot of problems, and he's addressing a lot of concerns with just one simple stroke. So he thinks that meditating on the mantra and realizing our spiritual potential is really going to take us very far. And then when we get very far, then we realize that all our concerns are basically reduced to nothingness. So we realize it ourselves, that it's not that important
Right.
to pine for something or the other. So
Right.
that's my take on this poem. And
Right. Right. Right.
yeah, it seems in some ways very simple to understand,
Right.
and in some ways, it has just so much meaning, that it takes time to just uh, to just sort of like make it a part of us,
Right. Right.
to, to really sort of follow that, or to understand that this is important.
Correct. I think the basic philosophy of Kabir Sahab, I think it's very important for all of us to understand
Mm-hmm.
that. So, uh, everybody has to meditate, everybody has to focus on breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So, when he says all these things, he never ever says that you go to a forest or a solitude place and do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is the
that's true.
best part about his philosophy. What
Mm-hmm.
he says is, remain in this world, but do not be attached to whatever you do, right? So
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
just dedicate everything as God's work,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because the fact is that there is some power that is controlling all of us in some way or the other. So it is very important for us to realize that there is some power that is basically making us act the way we do. So
Mm-hmm.
if that is the case, there is no reason for us to be attached to whatever we do, right? Because it is basically not our work that we are doing. It
Mm-hmm.
is something that is being done through us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So once we
Yeah,
realize
yeah,
that,
definitely.
then all these things become very easy to understand. So meditation, so just this very fact that you detach yourself from whatever things you do,
Mm-hmm.
that itself is meditation, right? I mean, just to dedicate everything to the Lord, that in
Mm-hmm.
itself is meditation.
Yeah.
So which means nobody has to sit in one, well, I mean, that's like what I would call practical meditation.
Yeah, actually, that is what they call as detachment, or
Right.
what Saint Kabir is saying here as tanamana dhana sabha varure, like
Yes.
give it all
Yes.
to the cause.
Yes.
So
Yes.
meditation has a very technical meaning, but detachment is extremely important
Yes.
in the process of
Yes.
meditating.
Meditation. Yes. Yes. In fact,
Right.
I feel like that in itself is meditation. To practice detachment in itself is meditation. And then once you
It
achieve
certainly
that,
takes you in the right direction.
right,
Yes.
once you
Yeah.
achieve that, then everything becomes like one, in which you see the all pervading in everything, right? Because then you
Mm-hmm.
realize that, oh, everything is being done by that supreme force, and we are just an instrument, right?
Yeah.
So once we
Yeah.
realize that, it becomes very, very easy to lead a life, right?
Yeah,
So
that's true. And
yeah.
sometimes, people worry about fatalism and, what does that mean for us? Like,
Hmm,
do we not have freedom of choice and
hmm,
stuff like that?
hmm.
But here, like, when you're in the spiritual journey, you're basically achieving, sort of your oneness with the Brahman. And then you realize that the whole universe has a meaning. It has a purpose, and the best thing is for us to realize what is our purpose in life.
Exactly.
How do we contribute to the society? And that
Correct.
is our purpose in life. And once we find that, then we only see it sort of working out very well for everyone.
Correct. And when, like as you very rightly said, all these saints, when they say that, hey, like give up your desires, and, uh, like you talked about eating, right? So that was pretty interesting because, I
Hmm.
mean, like people like myself, we are pretty fond of eating, by the
Yeah. Yeah,
way.
me too.
Well, I mean, everybody is, but no. So the point I was trying to make was, so it is okay to do all that. See, because being in this world, everybody has to do all that.
Hmm.
Nothing wrong in attending parties, having fun with your friends. Nothing wrong in doing that. Absolutely nothing wrong. So basically, no saint will tell you not to do all these things, right? But the fact is that in all this, when you do all these worldly stuff, the so called worldly stuff, you must remember, or I should say, we all must remember that there is that power that is dictating all this. And once we realize that, we then know as to how insignificant we are in the whole scheme of things, right? And
Yeah.
it is that power to which we need to surrender. And once that
Yeah.
happens, everything that you do gets dedicated to that power, right? And
Yeah,
then
yeah, that's true. You
you're right,
start seeing that,
right,
parties don't really matter all that much. Or
right,
even if you go there, you behave very responsibly and
right,
don't
right.
get into um, any kind of situations where
Absolutely,
you need to be
absolutely,
rescued. So yeah, that's
absolutely.
true. Like, once you stay focused on the goal,
Yes,
then it becomes much easier to accomplish the goal. And
absolutely.
that focus comes through meditation. And
Yes,
it's true in the singing as well, right,
yes,
Manoj? I
yes,
mean,
yes, of course, of course,
yeah,
of
the
course, of course.
focus and the meditation and the breathing, all of
Yes.
that is always taught to
In
musical
fact, I mean,
students.
yes. So all these means, right? Music, meditation, yoga, are all given to us so that we can achieve this ultimate goal of practicing detachment in our daily lives. Because if you just ask anybody to practice detachment or practice meditation, it is difficult for anybody to do. So you need some practical process.
Hmm.
So in this case, meditation would mean like you just close your eyes and sit and just focus on anything, basically, right? Any, I mean, it can be as simple as focusing on any particular part of your body, right? You just totally focus on that, or you focus on the light within you.
Yeah,
So
I mean, normally, like, at least in the Nimbas Sampradaya, where I learned to
yes,
to
yes,
meditate,
yes,
they ask you to focus on the tip of your nose or
yeah,
on the top of
exactly,
your
yes,
nose,
exactly,
and,
yes,
then sort of like keep your attention
exactly,
within you.
correct. So all these are means for us to eventually achieve. So like even music, for example. So when you learn music, so that's another very very important aspect of music, that it basically teaches you to view the abstract, right? So then once you're able to do that, then then that leads you to detachment gradually,
Hmm.
right? So because you're viewing the abstract, meaning you're not seeing just things at as the face value, but you're able to
Hmm.
view something way beyond that, right?
Right,
And
right.
so when that happens, so that's what music teaches you. So basically all these are processes or methods by which you eventually achieve this goal that you uh, explained to us today about practicing
Hmm.
detachment through meditation.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. These are all very closely connected
Hmm.
topics.
Yeah,
So
right.
that part is true. Yeah.
Yes,
And,
yes,
and the music makes it all very meaningful
sure,
because, we have all these traditions of like doing kirtan or doing abhangas,
right,
singing,
right,
and, just bhajan and arti. And
right,
they all involve a lot of music.
right,
And Bhakti Sangeet is, absolutely very highly valued
right,
in India.
right.
So then putting these beautiful padas to music is a great contribution you're making, Manoj. So I'm very much looking forward to how you're going to present today's composition.
Yeah, so this is the composition based on Rag Gorakh Kalyan. So it's an early night melody set to Kehrwa Tal, 8 beats cycle. So, with your
Beautiful,
permission, Ashmini, and with all of your permission, I
beautiful.
would like to present
Yeah,
this.
looking forward to it.
Select slow manual on slash off. Slow manual on slash off. Button. Pitch tone. Button. Tagline on slash off. Button. Speech off.
अपने घट दियना बारू रे अपने घट दियना बारू रे अपने घट दियना बारू रे नाम की तेल सूरत कई बाती नाम की तेल सूरत कई बाती ब्रह्म अगिन उद्गारू रे, ब्रह्म अगिन उद्गारू रे, दियना बारू रे, अपने घट दियना जगमग ज्योत निहार मंदिर में, तन मन धन सब वारू रे, जगमग ज्योत निहार मंदिर में, तन मन धन सब वारू रे, तन मन धन सब वारू सब वारू रे, दियना वारू रे, अपने घट दियना वारू झूठी जान जगत की आसा, बारंबार बिसारू रे, झूठी जान झूठी जान जगत की आसा, बारंबार बिसारू रे, कहे कबीर सुनो भई साधो, कहे कबीर सुनो भई साधो, कहे कबीर सुनो भई साधो, अपना काज सवारू रे, दियना बारू रे, अपने घट दियना सूरत कई बाती, नाम की तेरी सूरत कई बाती, ब्रह्म अगिन उद्गारू रे, दियना बारू रे, अपने घट अपने घट ओ अपने घट दियना बारू रे।
वाह वाह वाह, क्या बात है, बहुत बढ़िया.
Thank you.
It was such a s- soft request, you know. It it sounded like a sort of beautiful melody, and at the same time, a very softly requesting people to meditate. It it wasn't, you know, there was nothing harsh about it. It was just beautiful. Yeah.
Well,
And
if you
Gorakh
feel that
Kalyan is such a
listening,
beautiful. Sorry.
no, I was saying if you feel that it was soft, and if we 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 come to know that people, okay, at least have accepted whatever we have said because
Yeah.
it was soft and it was not told in a harsh way. Well,
Yeah.
that
No,
is the whole
that's
idea.
the best way to persuade people, you know, just
Persuade people, huh?
softly,
Soft way.
yes,
Yeah.
gently telling them. Yeah. No, it is
Mm,
beautiful. And Gorakh Kalyan is such a wonderful rag for
yes.
Bhakti Sangeet.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great
But
choice.
yeah, thank you so much, Ashwini, for your exposition today.
Uh,
And
Thank you.
yes, and yeah, let's hope that all of us we think about all these great thoughts and try to put at least a bit of it into our daily practice. So thank you, Ashwini, and
Yeah, with that hope
yes, with that,
and on
I
that
know,
note,
and
yeah,
wishing everybody a very happy Dashera and a forthcoming happy Diwali.
yeah,
And we will see you next month for episode number 8.
yeah. Looking
Yes,
forward to the next one.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
thank you, all the viewers, and thank you, Manoj.
Yes, thanks to you
Namaste.
and namaskar.